Stop what you are doing right now and listen. You need to truly hear my words today, because the next few minutes will determine whether you spend the rest of your life as a drifter or as a sovereign commander. Look closely at the world around you today. The world is full of men who panic the moment a crisis hits. They constantly react to every minor slight or problem. They freeze completely when the heavy pressure finally builds, and then they desperately blame the entire universe for their own internal chaos. Why do 99% of men crumble under the weight of sudden change while the 1% use that exact same chaos to bend reality to their will? It is absolutely not about your level of intelligence. It is not some lucky break that heaven randomly handed them. You have been lied to for your entire life. You have been repeatedly taught that some men are simply born with a much cooler head. That is a devastating lie meant to keep you weak. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that you know all too well. You work incredibly hard every single day of your life. You desperately try to plan your steps and build your little fortresses. And yet the moment something unexpected happens, your mind immediately spirals into absolute terror. Your chest tightens and your breath gets dangerously shallow. You start making critical decisions out of pure blind fear. And then you are forced to helplessly watch as every single thing you built collapses right in front of your own two eyes. The universe is not punishing you for your past mistakes. You do not have a terrible luck problem holding you back. You actually have a deep and fundamental programming problem. Deep within the architecture of your subconscious mind, there is an outdated and highly destructive script running quietly in the dark. This destructive script is constantly running on an endless loop. It operates silently in the dark background of your daily life. It viciously commands you to panic whenever the wind changes. It brutally forces you to react to things outside of your control. It has been deeply installed by years of societal conditioning and painful past traumas. Your subconscious mind is a tireless and extremely obedient contractor. It builds exactly what your internal mental blueprint firmly demands. And unfortunately, right now, your primary mental blueprint is drawn entirely with the dark ink of endless fear and doubt. You are driving down the highway of your life with the emergency brake pulled tight. You press the gas pedal as hard as you possibly can. You sweat and strain while wondering why you are not moving forward. This is the defining difference between the drifting masses and the true creator. The drifter allows his external environment to completely dictate his internal emotional state. If the weather is bad, he becomes terribly sad and deeply unmotivated. If the market crashes, he is terrified and loses all his hope. If a stranger insults him, he is enraged and ruins his own day. He is nothing but a puppet dancing on the strings of society, and his invisible strings are relentlessly pulled by whatever random event happens to cross his path on any given afternoon. You have played this weak role for far too many years. You have foolishly allowed the loud and chaotic noise of the world to sit firmly on the throne of your mind. But you were not placed on this earth to merely survive the passing storms. You are the ultimate mental gatekeeper of your own reality. You are supposed to dictate the weather instead of hiding from the rain. The conscious creator never simply reacts to the passing circumstances. The true creator carefully observes all the incoming data and then issues a firm and undeniable command to reality itself. Think deeply about the last time a major crisis hit your personal life. What was your immediate and automatic response to that sudden pressure? Did you pause to gather your thoughts and calm your racing mind? Did you take a deep breath and stand tall as the master of your fate? Or did you immediately begin to imagine the absolute worst possible outcome? Most average men instantly default to the worst-case scenario the moment trouble finally arrives. They foolishly waste all their precious daily energy fighting phantoms and constantly going to war with terrifying ghosts of their own making. This terrible default setting was not originally chosen by your conscious mind. It was heavily handed down to you by a very fearful and anxious society. But keeping this broken code running today is entirely your own personal choice. Every single day that you actively refuse to confront this deep programming, you are voluntarily signing a binding contract with total mediocrity. You are actively choosing to remain a helpless victim in your own story. And there is absolutely no honor in being a victim of your own mind. There is no nobility in letting temporary circumstances completely crush your massive spirit. I am talking about cold and highly calculated dominion over your own mental faculties. I am talking about bravely stepping out of the frantic stream of mass panic. You must immediately learn how to stand firmly on the quiet riverbank and simply observe the rushing water without jumping in. Your human brain is fundamentally designed as a biological survival machine. It is specifically designed to keep you safe rather than making you truly powerful. Left to its own devices, it will always predictably choose the path of fear. It will always naturally gravitate toward anxiety and the path of least resistance. You have to forcefully step in right this very moment and finally take the steering wheel back from your primitive mind. You must absolutely become the sovereign commander of your internal emotional state. There is truly no other way to win this massive game of life. Until you finally rewrite that deeply fearful script, every single empire you try to build will completely collapse under the weight. You will forever remain at the total mercy of the very next unexpected global event. But there is a permanent way out of this invisible and terrifying mental prison. There is a highly precise mechanism you can use to take back ultimate control. But before we get to the solution today, you urgently need to deeply understand the hidden architecture of your own mind. You need to see the gears turning. The vast universe works by precise and absolute law. It does not operate on random chance or blind luck. There is an immutable principle governing human triumph and failure, and this is the uncompromising law of deliberate mental stillness. Stillness is not merely sitting quietly in a dark room. It is the absolute domination of your internal psychological environment while the external world falls apart. You must deeply comprehend this profound reality today. True power is never loud or wildly frantic. True power always whispers, while profound weakness endlessly screams for attention from anyone who will listen. When a crisis strikes your life, the world aggressively demands an immediate and panicked reaction. But the master refuses to play that rigged game, and he firmly holds his ground to silently observe the chaos. Critical thinking is your ultimate and most lethal weapon. It is not some dry academic exercise taught in a safe classroom. It is the brutal and necessary discipline of separating raw emotion from objective fact. You carefully look at the terrifying situation standing right in front of you. You brutally strip away the thick layers of personal fear, and when the heavy fog clears away, you can clearly see the absolute truth. Now we must examine the tragic mind of the drifting masses. The drifter is entirely governed by his fluctuating emotions, and he foolishly believes his intense feelings are accurate representations of objective reality. When sudden trouble arrives at his front door, his mental gatekeeper completely abandons the sacred post. Panic instantly floods his nervous system like a deadly biological poison. He immediately becomes a helpless victim of his own mind. He frantically searches for someone else to aggressively blame for his own internal chaos. The drifter loudly screams that the societal system is entirely rigged against him. He complains bitterly that the heavy burden is too hard to bear. And because he surrenders his critical logic, the external crisis easily consumes him whole. His physical brain is completely hijacked by primitive survival instincts. He literally cannot think clearly because he has voluntarily given away his sovereign mental power. Every single decision he makes in this panicked state is fundamentally and dangerously flawed. He blindly acts out of sheer desperation, and he unintentionally creates even more terrible problems that could have been avoided. But the true creator operates on a completely different cosmic frequency. The conscious creator deeply understands that daily chaos is merely neutral data. A sudden crisis is not a cruel punishment handed down from the angry heavens above. It is simply a sudden shift in the external variables of human life, but the architect of destiny looks at the raging storm with profound internal calm. He actively steps backward, away from the burning external fire. The sovereign commander creates a mandatory psychological space between the sudden stimulus and his final response. This deliberate gap of silence is exactly where monumental miracles are violently forged. He honestly asks himself what is actually true in this exact moment, and he absolutely refuses to entertain the dramatic lies of his fearful ego. What is silently controlling your fragile mind today? Is it hidden fear, or is it absolute spiritual certainty? The Creator forcefully commands his mind to analyze the bleak situation with cold mathematical calculation. He brutally cuts through the thick and suffocating fog of mass societal hysteria. While everyone else is crying about the sudden darkness, he is quietly building a massive new light. This is the raw and undeniable power of uncorrupted critical thinking. You absolutely must learn to question every single automatic thought that enters your brain. Your very first biological reaction to bad news is almost always a cowardly and pathetic lie. It is an incredibly weak story invented by your outdated survival mechanism, and the disciplined master completely rejects that initial panicked story. He demands hard factual evidence before he ever allows himself to deeply feel anything. He operates strictly as the ruthless gatekeeper of his own sacred mental temple. You must actively interrogate your own internal fears like a strict and unforgiving judge. Ask your sudden panic exactly why it demands your precious attention right now, and you will quickly find that most of your terror is based on illusions. This radical mental shift requires tremendous and unyielding personal discipline. It is conceptually simple, but it is extremely demanding on your human spirit. The drifting masses deeply hate this high level of intense personal accountability. They would much rather wallow in their comfortable misery than finally take full command of their racing thoughts, but you are absolutely not part of the sleeping masses anymore. The universe deeply and consistently rewards this cold and calculated calmness. It always yields to the powerful man who absolutely refuses to break under heavy daily pressure. Your life circumstances are entirely and perfectly neutral until you assign them a specific emotional meaning. If you quickly label a new challenge as a terrible tragedy, it will surely destroy your life. If you label it as a training ground, it will elevate you. Stop blindly accepting the weak and pathetic narrative handed to you by modern society. They desperately want you highly distracted and wildly emotional because panicked men are incredibly easy to control. A strong man who thinks critically and remains perfectly still is very dangerous to the current system. He simply cannot be manipulated by cheap fear tactics or entirely fake media urgency. He stands alone in his power. This is not mere motivational philosophy or foolish wishful thinking. That is a highly concrete law of human nature, just like the physical law of gravity. You might quietly wonder if this immense control is actually possible for your own brain, and you might wrongly think your anxious mind is permanently broken. It is absolutely not broken at all. It is simply running the wrong biological software. Let us carefully examine the actual physical science and the historic titans who completely mastered it. Let us look directly at the hard physical science today. This is not some mystical theory floating in the clouds. Your brain has a very specific and ancient biological alarm system. It is called the amygdala, and this tiny almond-shaped structure is constantly scanning your environment for deadly threats so it can keep your physical body alive. When a sudden crisis occurs, the amygdala violently hijacks your entire nervous system. It instantly floods your body with heavy stress hormones. It completely shuts down the prefrontal cortex of your brain. That is the exact area responsible for pure logic and critical thinking. And because your brain literally turns off its own intelligence to prepare for physical combat, you are left completely vulnerable to wild emotional swings. The drifter blindly surrenders to this chemical flood. He accepts the panic as truth. He loses his mind because his biology commands him to lose it. But the sovereign commander deeply understands this physical mechanism. He forcefully inserts a massive pause between the trigger and his reaction. He takes a deep breath to physically override the wild alarm system. And by refusing to react immediately to the sudden terror, he slowly forces the blood back into his highly logical brain. This is exactly where modern neuroscience firmly meets timeless wisdom. The biological hardware of the human brain has not changed for thousands of years. The drifting masses are still operating on the exact same software as terrified cavemen. They run from shadows. They scream at the sudden thunder. But the 1% have deliberately engineered a completely new mental operating system to conquer the chaos. How did a man with massive global pressure build the largest oil empire in human history? Let us look closely at the stunning example of John D. Rockefeller. In the terrifying financial panic of 1907, the entire country was completely collapsing. Powerful men were weeping in the streets, banks were failing everywhere, and total chaos firmly gripped the trembling nation while everyone begged for mercy. Average investors were desperately liquidating everything they owned for pennies. Their amygdalas were screaming at them to run for their lives. But Rockefeller stood perfectly still in the center of the raging storm. He did not let the external terror penetrate his sacred mental temple. He brutally enforced his own inner calmness while the whole world burned around him, and he refused to break his unbreakable focus. He viewed the devastating financial crash as mere neutral data. He coldly realized that panic was a disease of the weak-minded masses. And while other men were violently driven by their unmanaged biology, he activated his supreme critical thinking to see the massive opportunity. He bought massive amounts of shares while everyone else was foolishly selling. He engineered generational wealth from their blind terror. Rockefeller mastered his own brain architecture long before scientists ever mapped it. He intuitively understood that panic is the ultimate enemy of human progress. The masses wait for a miracle to save them from the heavy pressure. The 1% use a specific internal protocol to completely neutralize the threat, and they treat their own thoughts as heavy tools rather than fragile toys that constantly break under pressure. You must carefully observe how this profound law operates in absolute silence. The universe does not reward the man who screams the loudest in the dark. It ruthlessly rewards the man who holds his ground and silently observes the chaos. Your frantic emotions are desperately trying to deceive you every single day. They are loudly telling you that the sky is finally falling down and everything is completely ruined. But the sky is absolutely not falling. You are simply experiencing a temporary fluctuation in your daily circumstances. Your biological alarm system is painfully misfiring over a temporary financial setback or a minor personal insult. You are allowing a primitive brain structure to dictate the future of your great empire. It is time to forcefully close that unauthorized door before it destroys your entire legacy. The Creator actively builds a massive fortress of cold rationality. He knows that his subconscious is a tireless contractor waiting for clear orders. If he feeds it absolute panic, it will systematically build a reality of total ruin. If he feeds it cold and calculated logic, it will build an undeniable pathway to victory. The choice always rests entirely within your own mind, and you must make that vital choice today. This profound realization completely shifts the balance of cosmic power. You are no longer a helpless victim of your own volatile brain chemistry. You are the ultimate architect of your internal state. When the heavy wave of fear hits your chest, you simply acknowledge its presence without giving it any of your power. You watch the dark emotion rise, and then you let it quietly pass away into the cold wind. That is the massive difference between those who live with purpose and those who merely exist. You must rigorously train your brain to seek the hidden advantage in every single crisis. When you are fired from a job, your initial programming screams total disaster. But your upgraded mind must immediately look for the massive hidden opportunity, because every single obstacle simply becomes the brand new path forward. You forcefully demand that your brain finds a logical solution. The reticular activating system in your brain will always hunt for exactly what you command it to find. If you command it to find absolute ruin, it will easily find endless evidence of ruin. But if you demand a pathway to power, it will scan the chaotic environment and locate the precise stepping stones to secure your massive victory. This is not a polite suggestion for a slightly better life. This is the absolute and unforgiving law of mental dominion. You either control the biological machine, or the biological machine fundamentally controls you. There is no safe middle ground for the modern man. You must violently rip out the old programming today and you must permanently install the cold and quiet confidence of a true sovereign king. You are stepping into the elite territory of the undeniable 1%. The air is very thin and the required discipline is extremely heavy. But the ultimate reward is total sovereignty over your own existence. We have clearly established the hard science and the historical proof of this vital law. And now we must transition from deep theoretical knowledge into brutal and uncompromising daily practice. Now we must make this highly practical. Listening to deep philosophy will never change your daily life. The drifter hears profound truth and merely nods his head in passive agreement. But the sovereign commander takes the raw material of truth, and he immediately builds an unbreakable fortress for his mind. You must forcefully install a new operating system today. This is the precise protocol of cosmic housekeeping. Your ultimate power lies entirely in the silent gap. There is a sacred space between a sudden chaotic event and your final emotional reaction. The drifting masses have absolutely zero space in their fearful minds. When something bad happens in their environment, they instantly explode with blind rage because they have zero control over their impulses. But the true architect of destiny aggressively guards that vital gap. You must actively expand that quiet space until you own the entire battlefield. Listen to me carefully right now. The very next time a major crisis violently hits your life, you will use the sacred pause. You will completely freeze your physical body and stop speaking. Your racing heart will desperately scream for you to panic immediately, but you will firmly deny that pathetic biological request. You will take one deep breath, and you will simply command your nervous system to stand down. You are the absolute master of this biological machine. Do not skip this crucial step. That single breath physically overrides your primitive brain structure. It violently forces the hot blood back into your highly logical prefrontal cortex. Because you pause the physical reaction, you are literally rewiring your mental hardware in real time. The terrified victim reacts to the loud noise without thinking, and he foolishly creates even more terrible problems for himself. While the conscious creator coldly observes the loud noise, he calculates his next move with absolute precision. Once you establish that silent gap, you ask the ultimate question. You brutally ask yourself what is actually true in this exact moment. Your fearful ego will try to tell you a terrifying story of total ruin, and it will loudly whisper that your entire life is completely over. You must aggressively strip away that pathetic emotional lie. Look only at the cold and undeniable facts standing right in front of you. If you lose your job, the fact is simply that your income stream has changed. It is absolutely not a final death sentence. You evaluate the raw data exactly like a cold mathematical equation. This intense level of cosmic housekeeping requires absolute ruthlessness from your soul. You must viciously sweep away every single weak thought, and you must refuse to entertain any anxiety about the future. You are the mental gatekeeper today. This brings us to the nightly ritual of the 1%. Your subconscious mind is completely vulnerable right before you fall asleep. The drifter spends his final 15 minutes staring blindly at terrible news. He fills his mind with massive anxiety before he closes his eyes, and then he foolishly wonders why he wakes up feeling completely drained. You must refuse to live like that anymore. You must immediately stop consuming the poison of the masses. Tonight you will begin a completely new tradition of power. 15 minutes before you sleep, you will shut off every single digital screen in your house, and you will take total dominion over your racing thoughts. You will sit in absolute silence to take control. You will firmly instruct your tireless subconscious contractor on exactly what it needs to build. Say this powerful statement aloud to yourself tonight. Say it with the absolute authority of a sovereign king. I am the sole master of my internal fate. I completely refuse to let external chaos dictate my internal emotional reality. As you repeat these heavy words in the dark, you will literally feel the weak programming leaving your physical body forever. You are replacing the fragile foundation of fear with solid steel, and you are building a new empire. Do not just listen to my voice and casually forget this. Write it down right now on a physical piece of paper. The simple act of writing firmly bridges the gap between the invisible mind and the physical world, so you must not ignore this strict command. Write down your definite chief aim and read it aloud every single night. Treat this private mental tradition as something profoundly sacred because it is the ultimate key to your freedom. This strict cosmic housekeeping will rapidly change your entire frequency. The universe always responds to the exact vibration you consistently hold. When you successfully maintain cold calmness during a massive storm, reality has no choice but to respect your power and bend to your will. The heavy obstacles will slowly begin to move out of your path. You become an unstoppable force moving through the world, and nothing can stand in your way anymore. You will finally realize that you were never broken. You were simply using the wrong internal mechanism to process the heavy data. The drifter will stubbornly ignore this exact protocol, and he will sadly return to his miserable life of quiet desperation. The true creator will use it tonight to secure his rising empire. You now have the exact blueprint to completely control any situation. Which path will you choose to walk down today? By consistently practicing this gap, you become completely undeniable. People will look at your calm face and wonder how you survived the burning fire. They will wrongly assume you have some massive unfair advantage. They will never see the silent battles you fought in the dark, because they are too blind to understand true discipline. But mastering this space is only the beginning of your journey. Now comes the ultimate turning point of your life. You have learned the precise law of deliberate mental stillness. You have seen the undeniable scientific proof of your own brain architecture. You have been given the exact daily protocol to reprogram your subconscious mind. The heavy burden of absolute truth has been firmly placed on your shoulders, and you can no longer plead ignorance. And now you must make the most critical decision of your entire existence. This is exactly where most people fail and surrender. They deeply understand the logic behind the protocol, but they are simply too lazy to execute the command when time. Do not let your weak ego convince you that this is too difficult. It is incredibly demanding, but the tragic alternative is a lifetime of miserable slavery. You must firmly declare war against your own internal weakness right this very second. Every single time you choose silence over panic, you grow massively stronger. You are actively starving the parasite of fear that has lived in your mind. The world is desperately waiting for a disciplined thinker to rise from the ashes. That powerful man is already inside of you, and he is eagerly waiting to be unleashed upon the world. The time for endless drifting is permanently over. Prepare yourself for the final command. The time for endless drifting is permanently over. You have heard the absolute and unforgiving law today. You have spent years playing the pathetic role of the helpless victim. But that weak version of yourself must absolutely die in this exact room today, because the world is eagerly waiting for a sovereign commander. You must aggressively take back your stolen power. You must look directly into the dark mirror of your soul. You must brutally confront the terrible lies you have told yourself. The heavy chains holding you back are entirely forged by your own mind. You forged them with every single complaint you made, and you reinforce them with every cowardly reaction to the external weather. It is time to aggressively shatter those rusty chains right now. Do you truly want to conquer this massive world? Do you want to finally taste the absolute victory that makes average men uncomfortable? Then you must permanently execute the complaining victim living inside your head. You cannot carry that massive dead weight into your bright future, because building an unstoppable empire requires absolute and ruthless internal purity. This is the ultimate price of human greatness. There is absolutely no neutral thought in this vast universe. Every single thought is either pushing you forward or pulling you backward. It is either moving you toward ultimate freedom or reinforcing your heavy bondage. The sovereign commander deeply realizes this terrifying truth, and he firmly begins to treat his daily thoughts as lethal weapons rather than fragile toys. You must guard your mental gates with extreme prejudice. You must loudly say no to the chaotic noise of the masses. You must forcefully say no to the constant panic of the modern world. That tragic chapter of your weak life is completely over forever. A massive new chapter is violently beginning right now with a brand new decision, and you are reclaiming your rightful throne as the architect of destiny. The drifting masses will simply hear these heavy words and do absolutely nothing. They will slowly return to their invisible prisons and quietly beg for a miracle. They will remain completely paralyzed by their own unmanaged biology. But you did not click on this powerful message by random chance, because you came here completely exhausted by the endless drift. You are finally ready to break the vicious cycle. You came here because your massive spirit demands total liberation. You have finally remembered exactly who you are today. You are the ultimate and undisputed gatekeeper of your own precious thoughts. From this dark night forward, you will act entirely independent of cheap daily motivation, while you become a relentless builder working silently in the invisible season. Stand up tall and fiercely claim your rightful throne. You are the absolute creator of your own reality today. The physical world has absolutely no choice but to bend to your disciplined mind. When you fully master the sacred pause between stimulus and response, you become completely undeniable, and the entire universe must step aside. You bow to absolutely no external circumstances anymore. You are no longer reacting blindly to the changing winds. You are the unstoppable storm that actively dictates where the wind blows. Every single obstacle in your path will simply become a stepping stone. Because you absolutely refuse to panic when trouble arrives, your bitter enemies will slowly collapse under the heavy weight of their own unmanaged fear. You will quietly outlast every single one of them. Tonight, as you finally close your heavy eyes, you must make a choice. Will you quietly return to the chaotic panic of the drifting masses tomorrow, or will you boldly step into the unstoppable power of the 1%? You are literally one single decision away from monumental momentum, and you are one mental shift away from a completely new and sovereign life. This is your ultimate moment of absolute truth. But that massive shift will never happen unless you force it to happen. Hesitation is the absolute and silent death of human destiny. You must make a final and binding decision right this very second. You must draw a permanent line in the sand that you will never cross again, because the tragic choice to remain weak has been permanently removed. I am strictly commanding you to completely rewrite your mental architecture. Let this exact moment be the sacred turning point of your existence. You must leave the most important line of your life below right now. Write your definite chief aim clearly in the comments below, and let those powerful words be the binding contract you sign with the universe today. Do not skip this highly crucial daily step. This is not merely leaving a casual digital comment on a video. This is a sacred vow made by a sovereign king who refuses to break. When you type those heavy words, you issue a direct command to your subconscious. You are forcefully declaring that you are the sole master of your ultimate fate, and you are completely sealing your new destiny in stone. I am the master of my fate and the architect of my success. I am the absolute cause and never the effect of my daily reality. Let that heavy vibration completely rewire your nervous system tonight. Read your own powerful comment every single morning when you wake up, and treat this private daily tradition as something profoundly sacred and incredibly powerful. Your mind will completely obey this new command. You must subscribe to this specific channel if this ancient tradition is yours. Join the elite ranks of the men who absolutely refuse to drift through life. You must return to this exact lesson again and again until it is installed. Play it as you slowly fall asleep in the dark tonight, and play it as you aggressively work to build your massive new empire tomorrow. Make these undeniable principles the only voice you tolerate in your head. Do not let the toxic poison of the outside world corrupt your mental temple. You must protect your high frequency with extreme and absolute prejudice today. The fearful drifter inside of you is completely dead, and the true sovereign creator is finally awake to take dominion over the entire world. Step forward right now and claim your kingdom.